And I was like, yep, that's a good point. Because I think
Yeah.
there's also, I know evangelicals are really big into the whole, oh, I'm saved, right?
Yeah.
And then what do you see a lot of them do it? Oh, it's okay, I'm saved. No, it doesn't give you, being saved doesn't give you a ticket to being an asshole.
Yeah. Uh, there's a thing called repentance
Yeah.
that, that
It's a really weird word. You might have not heard of that one before.
yeah. And a lot, that's another thing that, like, before I became a Christian, I would, like, just to give you like a little instance that for some reason I remember, even though it wasn't anything real special, I went out to eat, and this was maybe like at this point in my life, I was probably about a year out of high school. So, like, that really edgy, hateful towards Christians phase was over. And I was more so like a kind of like a laid back agnostic, I guess, at the time. And I went to eat with some friends, and like the GD slipped out of my mouth. And this girl that we were hanging out with, she's like, oh, you can't say that, and all this stuff. And I'm already thinking, because like this girl was like a wild party animal, definitely stacking up a body count, so to speak, like, and doing all kinds of things that if she was going to church, that sometimes we're all sinners, but you shouldn't be so comfortable with it, I don't feel. And like I would see stuff like that, and that for a while made it so, because here's the thing, like when I was like a hardcore hater of Christianity, so to speak, I didn't see like I just saw, I didn't see what the straight, how do I put it, the true like doctrines and all of that were. And like I didn't see how, I couldn't see how a Christian was supposed to behave. I just saw how Christians behaved, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And that's what kept me away from, because I'm like, oh, this is what it's all about, judging everybody, acting like you're a perfect person, and then you can't even practice what you preach. And like that's how I thought for a while, and it kept me away from it. And it's a shame because and also, like, just them tearing each other apart when they're supposed to be brothers and sisters in Christ. And there's a song that actually there's a band called Cultist, and they have a song called Tossed to the Wolves. And there's like I guess like a chorus in like the first half of the song that has this, that I always love, because it has this really heavy like slam type of riff to it. And the lyrics in it are, we're all children of God. We all need forgiveness. But when we tear each other apart, the unbelievers witness. And like every time, like that, something about those lyrics just hit me, because I watch all this division among Christians, and just the way that a lot of them will want to behave harshly to one another. And, and it's just like it says, like, people who don't believe witness that, and they just keep getting pushed away. And it's sad. That's all there's to it. It's just straight up sad.
I found that verse you were thinking of. It's Mark 10, verse 18.
Yeah.
Why do you call me good? Jesus answered, no one is good except God alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I have a hard time remembering what the verse is. I'll have to like Google the verse, and then it'll tell me. But
I love
yeah.
Bible Hub. It gives you, if there's a Bible with a different translation of a verse, it gives you all the differences. And so I enjoy kind of gleaning like what the text intention could possibly be interpreted as.
Yeah.
Because you could read it in one translation and it could be totally different. But yeah. and yeah, I don't know how to fix it. I'm on the Christianity subreddit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Redditor. I'm always on that. My wife calls it the gossip page because I'm always reading the am I an asshole or off my chest? Like I just like reading those dramas because like when you read about drama, it makes your drama feel better. You're like, oh, at least that's not going on in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And this person who'd been on the page for a very long time got tired because every other day somebody is posting, is masturbation a sin, right? And he said, I don't know why we can't just block this word from being asked. Like this question is asked repeatedly and redifferring the structure. And then the whole conversation went around, like, if you think about it, Christians have been asking the same questions for the last 2,000 years, right? So it's like, where are you trying to go with it? So it's just interesting the way that people will go about stuff, and then the conversation and comments that people were leaving were interesting within that thread. And some people were like, I think some of these people are asking that question as like a way to excuse themselves of a behavior that they know is wrong. They're just trying to find a way to make it right.
Yeah, instead of that's another issue. Instead of picking up the scripture, looking for answers, from God, like let me ask other people.
Yeah, I'm all for about people asking questions and having like theology. I'm really into theology. On my Discord, I post. I have a whole section on theology. It's fascinating. I get into actual like big paper, like academic side of stuff, reading about these aspects and the deontological arguments of what this means, right? I find that very interesting. And these base level things where people just try to accuse themselves, it's not, the question isn't masturbation okay? I would be okay with, hey, what is this interpretation of what we think is right, wrong, or this, right? They're not asking a question from that side of things. They're asking it from like this very base level. And it's like, couldn't you have hit the search bar and seen that this has been asked like a billion times in the subreddit? Like, and so then the person saying that they were leaving the subreddit because they were tired of it, it was like somebody is typing.
Yeah, just constantly.
Somebody was replying because it ruffled feathers because he was tired of being on a subreddit. He's like, I'm here to not because you have a masturbation kink. I'm here for Christ. And how can I have a conversation about Christ or be uplifted or have a discussion between different faiths when every third post is about somebody who can't stop touching themselves? So
it's funny that you mentioned, because I joined a Facebook group a while back because there's like and there's a lot of guys in this Facebook group that struggle with that or like porn addiction, and like I like going in there now and then and just giving some encouragement or something, or like because but you see that all the time in there, and after a while, it's like this group ain't necessarily like a confessional, like I don't like, don't give me the details, it's and
I am not the priest that you should be talking to.
Ask for like some advice or like some prayers. But like you'll get some guys now and then that just like they'll slip up on that, and then they'll go straight into that group and be like, oh, I touched myself again and was watching porn. I'm such a piece of crap. Like I'll never change. Like I'll be like, so you're just gonna sit here and like spew everything that the devil's whispering in your ear instead of quite literally pulling your pants up and just repent and like strive to do better, just like don't. And there's another issue, like for free. A couple of years back, I don't think I wound up following this guy on Instagram, but I met this guy at Buffalo Wild Wings that was down on himself because he just had a drug relapse, like from opioids, and and trying to phrase what I told him because I genuinely what I said, like I could tell gave him some encouragement, but I had said something like if you like what he was doing was just straight up accepting defeat instead of realizing that he's like still alive and he's got opportunities to step away. Here we go. So he had a relapse. So he was doing good for a long time. He was avoiding it. And then he had like one night or whatever where something happened that tempted him. He slipped. He did it again. And now he feels powerless, basically. He feels like he can't live without it. He's just going to keep doing it. And I'm like, but you went so long without it, and you're going to let this one instance where you slipped up send you back into that lifestyle. Like it don't make any sense. And that the same applies to it. Like these addicts, like these people that are addicted to pornography and things like that. Like you have just because like you went several months without looking it up, for instance. So you get in some situation where temptation wins, you look it up, do blank, whatever, not mentioning it, and then you feel down on yourself, and your solution, your process going forward is to just slip back in it when you went so long without it. It's like you've proved to yourself that you can go without it, and you had one, and you're going to let one slip up send you back into that lifestyle. And that's what I don't, and I see so much of that in this particular group. And I guess like you're talking about with this subreddit and people talking about masturbation being a sin. And
I think that's like Alcoholic Anonymous. I know some people are against the whole chit where if you go a certain amount of days, you get a card, right?
Yeah.
I know some people who are opposed to that because what happens is eventually stuff happens, right? And you could fall back. And so they say that there's more psychological trauma that I had 5 years of sobriety and I messed it up overnight, right? Well, now they're going to be harder on themselves because of that. And they're more of a, have you had any to drink today? Nope. You're doing good. Mm-hmm. And but at flip side, some people need that whole, hey, it's been 60 days since I've had a sip of alcohol. I think that's important. The opioid crisis in America is absolutely terrible. I was watching this guy and it was comedic, but it was so truthful. He goes, I'll smoke crack every day, all day. Look at it. We got crackheads running around the city who've been crackheads for 30 years. Mm-hmm. But look at what happens when people do fentanyl. They're dead the next day.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah,
and so there's so many worse things out there, and it's just so rampant, the addiction crisis and what people did. There's a documentary about the Sackler family who basically pushed the opioid epidemic, hiring young women to go into these doctors' offices to basically scantily dress and basically sell and then come back and sell more and then hide all these other things just to make more money. Yeah. And you get people caught in the crossfire. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I really feel for that guy. And I think what you said is true. Like, it's not over, brother. You're still here.
Yeah, that's, yeah, I guess like a lot of most of us have some addiction of some sort that, we struggled with, and be it alcohol, drugs, freaking pornography, all that stuff. It's like I said, if you've gone so long and you have one slip up, that ain't defeat. Like that's that's like, that's like being in a boxing match and you're beating the crap out of the other guy and you're winning and you take one punch and you just give up.
Yeah.
It's that's pretty much the best way to describe it. And these, like a relapse isn't the end unless, of course, that relapse results in an overdose and
that is the end, then it is the end.
But if you make it through it, I mean, it's not over. You've shown that you can triumph over it. But like when you start giving in to that, I can't do it because I had a relapse. That's the devil whispering in your ear. That's literally you're choosing to listen to the father of lies. That's like just one case of such situations. Instead of realizing like the obvious, that you've shown you can triumph. You took one punch when you were winning the fight and just decided to lay down. Like
I don't remember where I heard this. It said Christ Jesus was crucified. Everyone has a bad day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But on the flip side, what Christ did through the atonement and salvation and resurrection for us matters, right? So,
yeah.
And I think people forget that whole endure to the end is a huge aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Huge aspect. And it's difficult. I apply anytime I find out somebody who's been dealing with like hardcore opiate addiction and who's gotten through it, that is amazing. Like those stories where they see them on Instagram shows a lot of them of where people were like hardcore meth users and they got clean and how much they the consequence of them. Yeah. The consequence of them doing meth is obviously going to be a lifelong thing, right? We get to choose what we do. We don't get to choose the consequences to that action, right? But to see how much like weight is off of their shoulders because the addiction is gone, like that's a beautiful thing to see, that where somebody's in control and they're doing well and they've got their life in order. And like, that's a miracle that's there. And I think we go through a lot of things because it's almost like this idea. I hate praying for things for myself, right? Like, God, please help me with this or that, right? Because it's like, I sit there and try to meditate and listen to see if I can feel the spirit prompt me to do something. And I joke and say it's like I'm staring at a wall. But for instance, let's say I'm your next door neighbor and I'm like, Tyler's going through something. How could I help him? I feel like I'm almost always going to be, hey, you should go help him, taking his trash today or something like that, right? And that's been exactly what has been needed for that situation. So I feel a lot of the stuff we go through is not for us, but it's for those that we come in contact with.
Yeah. And our trials too, it'll help us relate to others when they go through the same stuff. And that's one thing that my preacher, he preached recently was, that's, I guess one of the reasons we go through bad things is because somebody else is going to go through something similar.
Have you, oh, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Alter Heart. Have you watched his Barren music video?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't think I have.
Ooh. That is like one of the heaviest music videos I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And it's the same idea. You've seen some stuff, been through some stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like, the prime reason that Christ came in human form was to die, to be the sacrificial Lamb of God to atone all of our sins. But I feel like there's even more meaning too. Like he through his suffering, especially at the end of his life, I think he showed us, he kind of, how do I explain it? Like, for one, a lot of like the early Christians and the Christians in less fortunate, situations, like especially in these third world countries, I think he showed how to deal with persecution. I think that's, and I've heard of like some, like the early martyrs even doing what he did, and like praying, to forgive the persecutors, for like, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Like, I think even Stephen, like, who's often, even Stephen, I didn't mean to say that, but yeah, but I think I guess he's considered oftentimes like the first martyr of the Christian faith. I think he said, like, when he died, he said something similar when he was being stoned to death. Like, he prayed to forgive his persecutors. And so that's just like one, I feel like there's life lessons to learn from Christ's suffering as well, to endure till the end. Of course, that's obviously what he did. He endured or else we'd be screwed. All of us would, if he didn't do that, I don't think we'd have salvation. But
I mean, and so from my faith's perspective, our doctrine talks about why Christ sacrifices the eternal and last sacrifice, because the law of Moses would require me to perform a certain amount of blood sacrifices to atone for my sin. And then I would have to keep doing it. And, sometimes I wonder if people would be easier if, you just make a mistake and you just, oh, I'm going to sacrifice a goat for sins this year, and fouling of the calf and that thing. But at the same time, having one last sacrifice, there's the symbology of that. And I think a lot of people put so much focus on the cross that they forget that the atonement was technically 3 events. There was the Garden of Gethsemane, there was his persecution and death on the cross, and his resurrection in the tomb. A lot of people focus just on him on the cross. They forget that in the Gospels, the 4 Gospels, you see the side of Christ where he's in the garden trying to get the guys, his apostles, not the boys. Like, sorry, I'm almost tired myself. Like, pray with me. And they say the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, right? And Christ himself was like, I don't know if I can go through with this. And I think that's important to remember, that even Christ, because you basically see this picture of this person who just knows what to say in every situation. Mm-hmm. In a moment of vulnerability, you see the human side of him going, if at all possible, please take this away from me. But not my will, but thy will be done. That is, I think, a hard lesson that I think most of us will be learning the rest of our lives, which is part of the reason, why I'm doing this podcast and stuff, is trying to learn, what does it take to have that level of devotion like Stephen, that even in a moment of persecution leading to your death, what you are talking about and what you give to is, please forgive them.
Yeah. And I mean, that is hard. That's because, I mean, even I feel like I've struggled with like hateful thoughts for a long time, since I was like a kid. And I can't really say that I really truly on a regular basis feel that, because I've done a lot to stomp it out. But in a moment like that, I feel like if that were to happen to me, it'd be hard. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe with death being right there, you'd you'd think and be like, it just isn't worth it. And I mean, one of the things, I had a situation like a couple months ago where somebody, not to get too personal with details, but somebody was really, really irritating me. Someone that has a habit of having done this for a long time. And I said some real hateful things about that person. And in like a moment of weakness, I said, this is me. Like I wear my sins out on my sleeve sometimes. So bear with, but, I said something like if this person's because this was a person that says they're Christian and just does some terrible things to other people. And I said something to like a mutual, that knows both of us. I said, well, if that person's so comfortable with being in hell one day, then I don't really have a problem with it. And basically just told them that they belong there. And then I thought, probably not even 10 minutes later, because I was at the gym at the time, I was on the treadmill, and I thought like, well, look at me, look at what I just said. Like, this person that I was talking about, yeah, they're incredibly hateful, incredibly cruel, but look at what I just said. And here I am thinking I'm much better, and tangents are rolling again. But like,
I think that's the dichotomy of Christianity. Christ would always give us examples of like this, then, or if, then, also this, opposite versus, attraction, that kind of thing, where, he was like, live by the sword, die by the sword, but also at the same time, for he who is without a sword, let him sell his cloak and buy one, right? So it's like, there's a fine line, I think, and I think what we're supposed to become is, I think the term is moral operator, that we shouldn't be agents just responding to things, but we need to make a cognitive choice of what we are doing and why we are doing it, and being mindful of that and of our actions. Because like in the situation when you've said stuff like that, you don't know who's watching you, and that could be something that's hurting them from coming into recognizing God in their life, and being another reason why they hate Christians, because they saw, how Christians are acting.
And it's wild how it works that way, because
you're never alone.
Because society holds us to an impossible standard, because pretty much from a secular viewpoint, us Christians are supposed to be perfect. And every time we slip up, that's kind of a secular viewpoint. That's not even in our teachings. We're obviously not perfect. There's only one that ever was. But that's true. And
I think that's why the whole I've been saved thing is just a popular scapegoat. Because most of the times I've seen that used has not been for like a testimony meeting, or it's used strictly for the excuse of I will keep on sinning because it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Christ has already paid for my sin, so I can continue to do this thing that I know is morally wrong, but it's okay because God's got me.
Yeah, and that's like, because I go to a Baptist church, and they believe in I guess you could say the once saved always saved doctrine, and I guess I'll be honest, I don't even know where I exactly stand on that. That's something I've not fully come to terms with. There's apparently, because like I'm not guaranteeing, this is just what I've or hearsay, but my fascination with the Orthodox faith, there's a similarity there, but at the same, they're not, I guess, so laxed on it. Like a lot of the Protestants here in the U.S., they take it too lightheartedly. And like you said, it's less about their testimony, things like that. It's more about, I can get away with this because it's paid for. like and
it's like almost a meme in a way, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. Like, it seems like there's a little bit of a revival in like me with meme culture, but when you brought up the meme, but I've started wondering, because I thought that was for years. I was so happy to see so much online meme culture become dominated by Christianity, but I started wondering how much of that is genuine.
The amount of atheists making Christian memes is probably pretty high.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't know if, they're slowly being converted to belief and faith, and looking at the different churches and how the history of Christianity and where it's come from is not pretty. It's not concise. A lot of the things Christians believe just don't stand historically or have issues. Like, people forget about the Eastern Orthodoxy Church has been around for a long time, or that there was other books that were excluded from the Bible. So it's like, I think when it comes to it, I hope and pray that I'm in the right path. I feel that I am. I know that Jesus Christ is my Savior, and it's just continuing to work on those aspects. I know that I can repent, but knowing that I can repent shouldn't give me an excuse to sin, because one day I won't have any more sunrises. Right? It's like that memento mori, recognizing when you you die, how many sunsets do you have left, and how many can you reliably there? Like, I'm 30, I turned 34 in 12 days, I think. I can't math well.
Well, happy early birthday.
Yeah, thanks. How many more of those do I have? I have no idea, right? And I shouldn't watch it, but I watch a lot of combat footage. I guess it's just because I'm in the military, and I think it's important for me to watch that and witness the amount of people that I have seen dead since 9/11 on the internet is got to be 10,000 by now. It's just, there's so much prevalence of violence out there, and seeing people dead. And it's really sad.
I've seen it. I've seen plenty of things like that myself. Like and part of the thing, on one hand, I think it's maybe desensitized me a little bit where it shouldn't. And like, and I pray from time to time, because like I get a little numb to some things, and like, this is just stuff I saw on the internet, but it's real, like you'll just stumble across it. Like, you won't even like deliberately go out of your way to look up, guy dead in steamroller accident or something like great. Like, it's just stuff the internet will just throw it in your face. And in a way, like it's like I've been desensitized, and sometimes I don't like how numb I get, but at the same time, it goes back to like memento mori. It's a reminder. It's like I'm 26 years old, but that doesn't mean that I won't die tomorrow or next week. Like, it could happen. It ain't always from cancer or old age. It can be from anything. It's whenever God decides your clock has run out. And for some people, it's really early.
I've had good friends here on Okinawa die. And that's really weird. And one of them, his girlfriend turned out to be pregnant with his child. She didn't even know. Like he didn't even know he had a child on the way when he died. Right. And so
Yeah, it's sad.
um, she got out and she moved close to be with his family, and they're helping, raise this baby. Um, and, I had a friend, my name's Logan. I had a friend,
Mhm.
Logan, die here in a motorcycle accident. Um, you never know how quickly things can go. And I think
Yeah.
I don't think it's like the Superman thing. I think there's always a tomorrow, and eventually there's not. And so we shouldn't rely on there being a tomorrow to repent for the things that we've done. Like,
Hmm.
um, somebody, I read a quote. It said, if, if Catholics really cared about confession, there'd be one every single day, which I'm not entirely spun up on Catholicism as much as I used to be, but I'm pretty sure they do. But I think it was more or less talking about we need to be repenting every day and confessing our sins to God
Hmm.
to invite the Spirit into our lives to hopefully change through not our will but His will, and to see that. And not to go back to the topic of like watching people die, but I've seen several videos of like the Russian Ukraine conflict where the Russian Orthodoxy Church is praying over their guns, right? They're praying over their equipment to get their men through. And then you see the
Yeah.
Ukrainian Orthodoxy Church praying and doing the same thing, blessing these weapons for their people to have success. So now we have two Christians just killing each other because their
Yeah, that's
one nation wants to invade the other. And um, I think war is stupid and it's terrible that we should have that. Like we shouldn't be fighting other Christians. It's stupid.
hmm.
And we're just stuck in this machine that we can't escape from. And so I think that's what helped with some lyrics. If people have made it this far and listening, you guys are going to find out I have a song coming out hopefully December 29th, and it's about this subject. And Seth actually worked on he did the master and the visualizer.
Okay.
So he's helping me
Yeah.
on some other stuff too. But
Yeah, definitely link that to me as well. I'll definitely check it out.
and that song is about this aspect of like just how terrible like real reality is, not this Western blindness where I wake up and I go to my Starbucks and I go to work and I go to the gym and oh, I left my sandwich at home, so it was a bad day. Like people are
Yeah.
legitimately having
Yeah.
bad days out there. And I'm sorry, you know, um, it's just
I mean,
that getting that maturity level and learning to accept things as they are. Like
yeah.
right now, you can't see it, but I have two different computer monitors. One's from the same, they're both from the same company, but the other one is in the living room because I put up the acoustic treatment panels, and apparently my cats decided, oh, should side note, I can't screw anything into the walls, and I've already done that. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to. So I'm already
Mhm.
losing money from my security deposit for it. I wasn't trying to make it worse by hanging big old panels. So I've rigged it up a southern fashion way, right? It's got a big heavy base, but one of them I didn't have enough screws for, so I just propped it up behind my desk like a dummy. And I had the thought, you probably shouldn't do this. It's going to fall down and break the monitor. I said, yeah, that's not likely.
Yeah.
And I'm laying in bed, and what do I
And
hear?
crash. Yeah.
Dang it. And I was thinking, you know what that felt like? That felt like those times where God told me to do something. And that was that was the spirit whispering to me. And what do I go? Yeah.
Other direction. Yeah.
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 I'll repent tomorrow. It's okay.
I've had I've had my fair share of those. Some of it was recent, like where I had a situation with a like a a very, very distant family member that I've not talked to in years, not necessarily close to, that passed recently. And, but like I passed his house a couple of months ago and I had this feeling it's like you should go in there and just talk to him about the gospel. And I was just like, and I just sort of dismissed saying, nah, I'm sure his mind's made up. I don't know what he believes. I know his ex-wife was like, hardcore about the Bible for a while, or his late wife, not ex-wife. But that's one of those things I thought, maybe I should have. It's because now he's passed on. I don't know. It's not up to me where he's at. I don't know what but we have those moments, and sometimes it's it can be pretty heavy, and
I'd say learning to listen to those is really hard.
Yeah.
In my church, we do testimony meetings. We'll do fast the same day, once a month. And so instead of having the normal pastor or people who are assigned speakers get up and speak, anybody can get up and go share their testimony. And one day I really didn't want to go to church, but I just felt so strongly to go. So I went, and this gentleman got up and he's telling a story about one day before getting ready for church. He's about to walk out the door, and the previous day he was working on something and he had a screwdriver and he didn't put it back in the garage. And he was like, I'm going to go put this in the garage. But as he grabbed it, he felt so strongly, no, take it to church. And he was like, that's weird. So he went and got in the car, and that's when he felt it again. Like, no, go get the screwdriver and take it to church.
Yeah.
He was like, okay, it's not going to go away. I'll appease the thought, whatever this is. So he goes in, grabs it, puts it in his suit jacket, gets in the car, goes to church, completely forgets about it. They're in the middle of Sunday school after the main meeting, and he hears a blood-curdling scream of a little girl who got her fingers trapped in the door. And what did he use? The screwdriver to pry the door open. And they said the girl's fingers were saved because he got there so fast and had a screwdriver.
Yeah, that's yeah.
That's some powerful stuff. And guess what he does when he hears that still small spirit? He listens because, the effect that it does. And I know this wasn't just made up because there was people there that witnessed it. And it was a profound experience just to think that we can have these experiences and be open. And it's hard, to deal with that. Like, oh, what if I did this or did that? But I think we will have opportunities that happen to us because we're strong. A while back, I was in a car park here and at the store. I love going to the store. It's like a Goodwill, but a lot better. So many different things. It's got different levels. They have like car parts, anything you think of. It's like crazy. So spent the time looking around, go out, car's dead, won't start. Barely enough trickle to turn on, so I need to jump. So I pop my hood up, which is like the international sign of distress, and I have cables, and I'm literally standing there. Nobody helps me start the car. All I needed is somebody to pull up real quick, pop their hood, and I'd be on my way, right? Yeah. Nobody would do that. So I ended up having to pay a $200 tow fee to come out for this guy to come out and jump my car. And it turns out that battery was super dead. So I drove it right over to a store and dropped another $200 on a battery, right? And I was thinking about that situation like, oh, poor me, my freaking car battery died. But it's a car battery. I could afford it at the time. It would be nice to spend that money on something else. But what I realized was I was being used as a device to give people the opportunity to provide service to me. And
yeah. And like, I'm sure you felt it too. There's been plenty of times like where I've seen someone on the side of the road, and like you'll get that little voice, but sometimes you'll just think, I'm sure they got it. It's probably nothing. I got places I got to be, and we've all been there, but, yeah. And like, that's just talking from the opposite party, in that situation, like the passerby, like we get that voice that tells us, hey, you should help them out. But I'd say more often than, like, most of the time we ignore it. And I don't know, there's some people that, and I'd love to get to one of my issues with getting that voice when I get, it's like what almost always holds me back is like just bad social anxiety. And so like when I get that, like, hey, you should talk to this person, like, cause they might be straying from God or something, and something I say might help them. And I'll think, nah, heck, what could I say anyway? I mean, like, I blank out all the time. I'm not the best talker, things like that. But
I mean, not to digress, but Moses literally had a speech impediment. So,
yeah,
I mean, that's part of the reason why he, why me? I literally don't talk good, and I'm a murderer.
Yeah.
So that's not an excuse. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I know.
It's hard getting out of that comfort zone and saying that. And then sometimes you go up and you feel like you're feeling prompted and they're like, no, thanks. Or, oh, I'm fine. I don't need issues. And you're like, oh, I'm an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to do that. And, but when you have those moments where, it has helped, those are good experiences, which is, you talk about earlier, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is, I also have another friend who was, he was a devout atheist, ended up meeting a lovely woman who's a member of the church, and she, convinced him. And now all he does is really Christ focused, and he makes some really great music. I can share with you. It's more hip hop based. He's from Australia, really dope guy. Right.
Yeah.
But he was a devout atheist, like on these forums bashing, and he had an experience that basically, I don't know anymore. And that doubt that was put into his heart by God just kind of stuck with him. So did you have a moment that you would feel comfortable talking about that? Or was it more of a turning point? Or was it just like, maybe, was it something specific, or was it just over time you just started to feel differently about it?
Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's like, I guess it was a bit of a progressive situation, but I do like I've recently, like, there was this one night, like in the beginning of 2018, because when I look back, I say like 2017 and earlier, I was not a believer at all. Like 2016 is where I graduated high school, and like I said, like late in high school, I was very militant about it. Like I love just drawing edgy stuff that would make like the local Christian crowd uncomfortable. I had shirts with pentagrams on it, things like that. The whole really edgy, piss off the church crowd kind of vibe. And then like the following year, I was, a year later, I guess you could say I was an agnostic, which technically I'd say I had been the whole time, but I called myself an atheist. And I feel like a lot of times people know, but they're angry because there's like, and this is just a brief tangent. I'll get back on the subject, but like, a lot of times I've had conversations with like even some of the friendlier atheists, and they'll tell you, oh, I don't believe in God and all this. But then the way they talk, it sounds like they're angry at God. And then you start wondering like, well, if you're sure that he doesn't exist, why are you so so irritated with them. But so I don't think I ever was truly a atheist, but so 2017, like the year after that whole high school phase ended, where I was just really angry, I started to. I was not a great person by any means, but I started to really, tolerate the Christian crowd more and get along with them. But I was an agnostic. But I do remember it's hard to say for sure, but this might be like that turning point. And I don't think every Christian has like a specific moment. Like sometimes it is, like you said, a process. And in a way, I think it was for me too. But I think this night was when I started to get on the right track. And it was something, it wasn't even something too major, but I actually decided to pray for once. And I was on a friend's like porch one night, and there's some situation going on, and I don't even think it was anything big, but it had me down at the time. And I just I remember like just looking up at the sky and I guess calling out to God. And I didn't necessarily believe that Jesus Christ was the Messiah or anything at the time, but I reached out. I remember reaching out that night in prayer, and like I was pretty down. Like I remember I was crying at the time, something was getting me down. And then, and this feels like, the weird thing is too, this was almost like a recently unlocked memory since I started finally going to church. And it's weird that like I suddenly started remembering this night more, but a lot of like my memories around the time were a blur. And I wound up going on like the metal archives page for like me, like not my bands, but just me, and going to I had like a black metal project that I started like maybe a couple weeks or so after that. And I'd almost forgotten about it because the music is lost, but I clicked on it and the lyrics to some of the songs were still there. And there was lyrics about Jesus Christ, and it was the weirdest thing because I don't even remember much of what I was doing at the time, but like, I don't recall prior to this was like the beginning of 2018 when I prayed like this moment. And I do not recall being a Christian prior to 2018. Like I said, my memory can be pretty fuzzy, but it was just odd because I just happened to stumble across some lyrics from this lost music project of mine that I can't even find music files for anymore. But I found the lyrics on Metal Archives, and they were written on a release that was maybe like it was in February, and this situation happened in January. And the lyrics, there was lyrics talking about Christ. And I just found that absolutely wild. And I guess that's one of the way I was kind of unlocking my process. Because like when I look back at 2018, I was not living for God really at all. I even as back in 2020, I started going on some trips to Florida with my dad, and I had a little bit of a wild phase I shouldn't have. I mean, a lot of us have been there, but this is where the process comes in, because some people they have a past like that, and it seems like Christ comes to them and they just snap out of it, and they're immediately trying to live for him, And with me, I think there was a turning point. Like I said, I think it was that night, but there was a process of getting closer to him, and there are some out there, like I said, it's like, and this is great. And I love hearing these testimonies that they're just immediately trying to drop everything they were doing and follow Christ. Me, I think I learned pretty quickly that he was a Messiah, but it took me a long time to try and live better for him. And in a lot of ways, I feel like and I guess this is, every Christian probably thinks I was way worse last year, but, or a few months ago, because I mean, there's always progress to be made. we're never going to hit a point of perfection, except maybe when we're in heaven with him, but we're still not going to be anything compared to him, obviously. But yeah, I think that night was a really special turning point. And since then, I think after I learned that, I'd start joining Facebook groups. But for a while, I was like a really bitter, judgmental Christian, and I'll fully admit that, because I don't like to be that way. There's times I still get angry about the way certain people behave, but I was real hateful still for a while. And that was a character trait that I developed through years and years of living godlessly that didn't get stomped out right off the bat. And so that went on for a while. And even like because I started Resurrected Divinity in April of 2019. And even then, like, I believed, but I guess I was pretty lukewarm, so to speak. And so when I started Resurrected Divinity, it was more like me and a buddy were talking, and I'm like, it seems like Christian music is stereotypically always something really soft and mellow. Let's just make the most ridiculous form of like goregrind / brutal death metal and put lyrics about Christ in it. And so it almost started off as a joke, admittedly, but then like over time, and especially now, I've seen it as like a serious means of talking about my personal trials as a Christian, about talking about like my Christian viewpoint of society, and just talking about Christ mainly with music that is typically very secular. So, I mean, that's what it came down to. I feel like now I'm in a position where I love doing what I'm doing, because like before it was just, making this style of music to make this style of music early on. And like, I bring up my music project because it's a big part of my life. It's a big part of who I am. But now I feel like I have this personal mission to kind of help plant some seeds in like the fan base of stuff like brutal death metal, because like we talked earlier, that's a genre of music that tends to be very secular, and not just that, but very, very obscene, and
in some aspects very atheistically driven, because a lot of people can't get behind, if God is good, why does he allow evil, which is a whole theological debate that people get PhDs from on their dissertation, right? So there's a huge debate about like why things happen. I agree. I think people are so dead set that music has to sound like freaking K-Love radio that they forget that there can be other styles. And it's like, for me, I want to listen to the hardest rap and hip hop music. I have some good friends making stuff like Jay Sraddick. I've got my friend Peregrine, I mentioned before. He was one who was a devout atheist, you'd say. My friend Leland, who he's on a whole nother level that I've had a couple conversations with him, and it's inspirational, kind of like where people can be at with their discipleship and devotion to God. And I think having a diverse range of music to listen to is good. I'm not saying Michael Camp isn't good, but like, I'm not going to listen to that 24/7 on repeat because it gets old.
And
in the South, who Lecrae is. I know you know who Lecrae is.
I'll be honest, I don't think I do.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, he was one of those Christian rappers, dirty South Southern style. Got really big and famous. So,
see, like, rap's one of those genres that I rarely listen to. I did find I had a friend link me a rapper that apparently also used to be like devoutly atheist, called Disciple Zechariah. And he has like one album. I don't know if that's the name that he used to go by, but like he apparently used to be like a really dirty rapper before his conversion, you know?
Yeah.
And, but he's got like this, he's got a hip hop album that's very Christ centered, and it actually, and it's really good. But rap's a genre I don't really listen to much. I get discouraged because of a lot of the mainstream hip hop these days is just complete trash, to put it bluntly. And I feel like it's contributing to the moral downfall of the youth. But
yeah, my buddy, he released an album. He just released a new album. On his first full length album, Babylon, he has a song titled Hedonism Crop Top.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about the hedonism and society and about that. And like, you have all these issues. It's hard to have music. I think that's also why I think Christian metal just works out so well, is like, that is the dichotomy.
Yeah. Well, and this was something actually that I think when I was on a phone call with Seth a couple of weeks ago, we talked about like the fan base and like death metal and death grind and like this underground style of death metal I'm going for. And because Seth's been in the music scene for a very long time, like since the 90s. And he was talking about how a lot of fans don't necessarily care what the music is about. Like if you make like secular fans, for instance, they don't really care if you make music about the faith. For one, sorry, I've been having bad indigestion today. For one, that genre of music, you're probably not going to understand what's being said anyway. But like, a lot, and I've noticed that because like Slam, for instance, there are hardly any bands out there doing it. Like you could probably, there's probably a little more than this, but you'd probably count the amount of Christian Slam bands. Like I'm talking like legit, there's like bands that call themselves Slam because they have Slam riffs. But and these are good bands still. Like I listen to quite a few, but I'm talking true, like down to the T, slamming brutal death metal, what they call it. There, you could probably count the bands that are Christian that do that genre on both hands, and because there's not many, and that's a genre I've loved since high school. So I've been, at least during the past couple of years, at least since maybe about 2020s, maybe when I started getting much more serious about it, I want to do that style of music and talk about Christ and talk about my perspective on the world and on society from like a Christian viewpoint in my lyrics, even though you really can't understand them. But, you know, the fans will read them still. But do a genre, but have a sound that, of course, without blaspheming or using explicit, dirty sound samples, things like that, having a sound that appeals to even secular fans. And, you know, because people out there's people that they love that beefy, they love those beefy riffs. I've not been using it anymore, but they like that pingy snare sound and things like all that really raw, heavy slam death metal. And I've past few months, I think for lack of a better term, I guess my music kind of blew up a little more after the release of my last full length, As Hell Fumes in Defeat, because I made a video stream for it, and I paid to get it uploaded on Slam Worldwide, and it got noticed by a pretty good amount of people. And I would, without even talking to anybody, I'd open up Instagram and I'd get notifications that like secular brutal music bloggers like that, you know, stuff that had nothing to do with the Christian metal scene were sharing my album and promoting it. And I liked it because I mean I feel like a lot of Christian artists try, or you know, they're more focused on appealing just to the Christian fan base. Like, I don't want to do that, just do that. You know, I want to do that, but you know, that if you can draw in fans that don't believe too, you know, that's like if they're really into your music, something in it, if I'm doing it right, something in it could, you know, plant a seed or could steer them in the right direction. And so I don't know. I like the appeal to secular fans, of course, without feeling the need to put an F-bomb in my music or something like that. Cause I see some bands do that and I'm like, nah, that's a little unprofessional in my opinion. But
I was checking on your discography, and I think Spotify's tripping. It says here, All As Hell Fumes and Defeat is by this weird records DK.
It was that one was independently released. Or
okay.
Well, I was on Coliosis at the time, but I don't think Cole has like a DistroKid set up for his record label and things like that.
So it's just like, okay, I see. Okay, it's tracking.
Yeah, because I was using like prior, like now that I'm signed to Seth's label, like he has his own DistroKid that he puts all my stuff through. So I just let him, you know, take over that. And so that's why like my last, I would say both the Lycanthropy 2 and the Christmas single, the Born of a Virgin. Once again, sorry, I've been having bad indigestion.
No worries. I can feel you. Where's your Alka-Seltzer? Somebody with bad indigestion. You always got it on tap.
I got some Tums here somewhere, but sometimes it'll just go away. But those two releases, I should say, like Broken Curfew, because that's what I've released since signing. But I think As Hell Fumes it did help put me on the map some more. I have there's a guy I think he does with some music too, but Wretched Horror Scum, like horror is like his Instagram, and he just shouts out all like grimy goregrind and slam and all that kind of stuff. And like, you know, not like related to the Christian music scene at all, but he was one of the first guys. And like, I found it like I try not to cuss, but I like, you know, I'm not really too prude at the sake, but he's like just dropping all kinds of profanity in his reviews and stuff. And I just kind of like laughed it off, but you know, I shared it anyway, you know, it was somebody shouting my stuff out. And then, there's a channel, in like the underground death metal scene called, Purgatory channel. And they wound up like out of the blue shouting that album out in one of their streams. I thought it was cool, even though they post some stuff that's, I guess you could say, a little blasphemous from time to time. But at the same time, I'm like, hey, I make Christian death metal, and people that don't believe are listening to it, I got no problem with that. I want them to listen to it too if they like it. You know, I'm not trying to run them off. So to me, it's pretty cool. And so I gave them they post some wild stuff now and then. Like they got some chicks on their channel that do like some weird modeling or whatnot, I guess. And I just kind of got to scroll sometimes, and, you know, but like, you know, they say like Jesus sat with sinners. He didn't have to sit. He didn't sin with them, but he still loved them just as much. And I'm trying to have that attitude, even though admittedly 2 or 3 years ago, I'd have been to put it bluntly, a complete asshole about something like that. I'd be like, no, get away from me. Yeah. I was that type for a little while, and I own it. There's some people I wish I didn't run off, but some of them came back and I've made amends and apologized. And I guess it happens. We all have a walk, and we all have to get humbled. Well, you know.
Yeah, I just checked on Slam Worldwide, and you got some pretty hefty fat views. That's really awesome.
Yeah, that one.
Let's see. Full album exclusive. Oh, they slapped the whole album up there.
Yeah, it was about an hour or something, an hour, 15 minutes, somewhere like that. I don't know, I feel, and I guess this is just a musician's quirk, I feel like my newer stuff is better, but people really seem to love that album. And I guess it's got its unique, heavy sound, I guess, but people seem to like the reviews, like the response I saw was generally positive. You had there's that indigestion again. Most of the negative response was from people that literally seemed to just hate it because it was Christian. And there were only a handful of those. And I expect that.
There's quite a few comments, 70 comments on your thing, and everyone seems to really enjoy it.
Yeah.
The very last comment has a couple people replying to them.
Yeah.
And the guy got ratioed. That's funny.
That may have been me that. Yeah, that may have been me that commented ratio. I can't remember.
That's so funny. Ratio. People don't understand like how hard it is to get big in music.
Oh no.
I think Spotify said like every 30 seconds is a new song being released. So it's like,
oh yeah, you've got a lot of you got like an ocean of competition. And not that it's supposed to be competitive either, but
that's the way to go.
Yeah. I've probably, now that I'm signed to Broken Curfew, Seth he's big on promoting. Like he does promotion, handles merch, CDs, everything. And I'm sure the road ahead is going to be a major improvement of where I've been, but I'm used to making like maybe honestly probably like $50 a year off my music tops. And I'm not in it for the money. If somebody, like if someone were to ask like, hey, I'm kind of broke, could I have a free download? And like I might just give it to them. Like being signed to a label, so it's a little different because I'm used to being independent for so many years, with the exception of when I was on the Bearded Dragon, which was a record label started by Mason Beard, who he drums for Symphony of Heaven. And then I was on Coliosis. But other than that, I'm used to being like independent. And this is Broken Curfew's like the first label that's, got like, I guess your common like label regulations on some things, which I'm 100% cool with. I feel like Seth and I have got some great chemistry as far as like our common ideas. And I'm not in a hurry to ever release anything, like I work on music all the time, but it can wait in limbo till a good release date. So it's been a blessing. I consider it a blessing, honestly.
I mean, I agree with that. I don't have the skills to put everything together. Like I'm having to teach myself how to do these things. And it takes time doing lessons, vocal lessons, working on that, making sure I'm consistent. On top of that, I work full time and I go to school full time. So not full time, but part time. I'm in school. I'm on winter break right now, which is why it's been really great. A
Yeah.
blessing to have a reprieve from that. So it's just really hard to do that. And then I have a wife and cats and things to go do. It's just like turns around. But Seth is really focused on like, really, I know how to get your music big. You need to do this and this. And so like I'm currently working on something that I thought was ready to be released. He has kind of steered me towards doing some corrections, and then I had some issues, and FL Studio hates me, and then
Yeah.
and then so I've been like trying to rebuild everything, and then yeah. And nobody makes death metal templates for FL Studio. There's one company I've been able to find. Everything is like Reaper, Cubase, Pro Tools. And I was like, why didn't I buy either of those?
Yeah.
Reaper's cheaper. I don't know why I didn't buy that.
Yeah.
But I'm also on the Reaper Facebook page. It also shows why I'm kind of glad I did it, because people are like, I woke up today and Reaper it's not on my computer anymore. Anybody know what happened?
Yeah.
But yeah, Seth's a good guy. It's definitely different. I didn't know it, but there's a band called COVIDectomy, so that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
That
It seems
popped
like
up.
it seems like the slam scene in a lot of ways these days. They hop on some weird like meme trends like all the time. And I don't know, I feel like it's pretty hit or miss. Me with like, so I listen to a bunch of different music. Like I said, like lately I've been on a Flyleaf fix, and I've been listening to like some of Lacey Sturm's like new solo stuff, because I like her a lot. I admire her in a way, because she seems to be one of those rock artists that made it big, but she has not like turned her back on Christ at all. And I admire that about her. Like her lyrics are still like just deep and powerful. And so and then I like some stuff that like scene kids would have listened to back in 2012. I like some I guess stuff that you'd call pop. I mean, it's all over the place, but yeah, I'm really passionate when it comes to like the heavy stuff. It's, I like metalcore. I like a little bit of deathcore too. I absolutely love beatdown, and I wish I'd start seeing. I think there's like a couple out there, but I wish I'd start seeing more Christian bands doing that, because like it's like the power and the brute force in that genre. Like apply that to like some Christ-centered musical themes. I'm actually trying to get something going as a new project. It just isn't official yet. But I really like that deep underground, like not particularly well produced style of death metal and slam and gore grind and things like that. Like with my music, a couple of my big influences are Mortician and Disgorge from Mexico, because there's a few different bands called Disgorge, but the one from Mexico has always been my favorite. So I like doing stuff like that, but straying from the themes of depraved violence and things like that, and instead focusing on the thematically on Christ and on, my Christian walk and my views on society as a Christian and on the world. I talk about now and then, like about sometimes like I'll write some sadder lyrics or some darker lyrics, but without being just discussing like depression in relation to like my faith or anger. And then some of the songs are just straight up glorification of Christ, and other songs will talk about the future, about like things like in Revelation, for instance. But yeah, one of the things I like too is I think Seth, like Mangled Carpenters, like death grind, I guess is the proper genre term. So he he's I like having a bit of a messier production, so to say. Like it ain't like ultra noisy raw, like some 90s black metal or whatever, but it's I like having that sound, and I get haters now and then that are like, this is garbage. I'm like, well, why should I listen to you? You don't even listen to this genre. Like the furthest you go is like As I Lay Dying or For Today, which is good music, but you don't even listen to these. And that's like, I'll get criticism now and then. I just blow it off because I'm going for that raw, abrasive style of death metal because there's a demand for it. And not just that, because I love it for one, but there's a demand for it in the underground, and I want to bring some more Christian themed music into that area of metal. And I think like Seth, he sees that too, and I love mixing my stuff on my own. So and I'm glad he seems to like the way I mix, even though it's a little bit raw, but he knows that that's what stuff like goregrind and all that is typically about. It's not about having a great production, and people because there's an atmosphere to it, I guess, that appeals to people. So yeah, it's been good working for him. He does a lot of the artwork too for bands because he's like a graphic designer. And at first I was worried, I know I can be a little picky about my album art and all that stuff. But then once he started putting out designs, I'm like, this is actually sick. Like I was immediately sold because he did the Lycanthropy 2, the reissue album that just dropped. He did the cover art and all the CD inlay art, and I was immediately sold on it. So it's just been a blessing because one of the reasons I started doing music solo is because I just couldn't compromise with back in the day when I had an online band going. I had a hard time coming to a compromise, and that's part of why I went solo and just did everything on my own. But it's been a blessing working with Seth because, for one, I will listen to anything he says because he's got decades of experience in this music scene with promotion, and I've been involved in, and it's mostly just through online. I've never really been to shows. I've only been involved a few years. So he is a guy that I 100% can already tell, first off, on what my close friends have said about their dealings with him, and now on my personal friendship with him. He's someone that he's got your back, and he won't flake on you. He's just a good dude. I won't go into detail, but there was some controversy recently where a merch site Seth works with dropped Hard Look, which is one of my label mates, because of his personal views on the Israel-Palestine thing. And Seth said, hey, that he's not coming from a place of hate with it, and that's his personal views. I'm not, and because he got pressured to drop him from the label. Things like that were going on because, and it's cancel culture the way I see it. You got a right to an opinion if you're not hateful about it, and he stood by him. I've noticed that he stands by his artists, and I like that. It's been a blessing working with someone like that already. I mean, I've only been on the label maybe about, the first single I released was December 8th. And that was maybe about a little over a week after I signed. And now I'm loving it. Honestly, it's been great.
Yeah, Seth is really great. I worked with him. I need to get the person who's supposed to be releasing my song. I might end up releasing independently. I don't know. Anyway, Seth was helping me out, and he did the visualizer, he did the mastering. He really helped take my song to like a different level with like the style of mastering he did. And then working with the visual art, because I had Glay on the podcast, and he turned me on to Seth. I tried get I mentioned this to Robert, because Robert was the first band I had on, because he's now doing Searching Serenity and with Blood Comes Cleansing. He's touring with Blood Comes Cleansing, which is cool. I thought they were a new group, but apparently they've been around for a decade or so.
Oh yeah, they're like a MySpace era deathcore jam.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah,
and he's out there, and then I know he's doing he did something with Legion of Adonai. But so I had Glay on, and Zach just turned me on to Seth. He's like, you got to reach out to Seth if you need to. I'll message him, let him know that you're going to be messaging. And so I just reached out and been working on some stuff. So I'm excited for me 2024. I'm supposed to release a stupid 3-track EP that I've had forever. It takes forever, dude.
Yeah.
And then for me, I'm a perfectionist. So like, I'm so sidetracked. Like, I'm rebuilding in a complete project file because of an issue with the sound quality. And I'm probably going to have to re-record my full screams on this one track with my new mic, because the previous sound file is corrupted. There's like this weird static, and it just bothers me because I thought it was a plugin I got, but turns out it's a sample, and I don't know why there's this static. And when I play the MP3 file of it, I don't hear it, but when I load it into my DAW, I hear it, and there's nothing on there. It's just that. So
that's so annoying, because like you'll listen to something you got on your headphones somewhere, it sounds great, and then you put it on your car stereo and it sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And one of the worst thing to me is just like mixing the vocals, getting them at the proper volume. That is always so irritating. I mean, the EP's out now, and I love how it turned out. Like, I try not to be, I'm more and more satisfied with my own music now, but, I still feel like I could have made some of the vocals on like the Flyleaf cover in particular a little more quiet, but at the same time, it kind of grows on me, and I think it's going to do the same for a lot of the fans. Like, the fans, when you get music out, a lot of time, like, your fan base is not going to complain about the things but
no,
being a perfectionist, being a perfectionist is about your own music. That's a good thing in a way too. Cause I mean, I want to put out something good. I'm working on my 4th album now, and got some other things, I guess, kind of planned, but I'm going to keep those secret till I'm certain about them and get them announced,
Yeah. I'm not putting a release date until the music is in the file and it's in DistroKid.
Till you've listened to it about yourself at least 100 times and confirmed that it's just where it needs, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
I listen to my own music, honestly, a lot, just looking for imperfections.
I mean, I talked to Seth. My current release song right now is called Release from Pain, which was a terrible name choice, but it means a lot to me. I released on 22 May this year, which is like, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. 22 veterans a day commit suicide. Just like, it's a heavy song.
Yeah.
And people are off because I'm crazy. Like, this is my music project. I'm making music I want to hear and listen to that I've not heard before. So I got my producer to make a deathcore country song. And it starts with the country and melody, and the average playtime on Spotify is like 22 seconds because it's an immediate skip because people's freaking attention spans aren't there. And I've had, when I post about the song, right, I go to the actual harder part in the song and people are so confused as to where it was. And I was like, well, if you listen to the song, you would know.
Mm-hmm. That's why I had somebody mention, because I had an album that, and I guess it was on As Hell Fumes, because it's got like an ambient kind of intro. I guess you could classify it like in kind of like the dark ambient genre or something like that. And that goes on for maybe a solid minute or so before the music like the riffs kick in. And somebody says like, oh, you got to be careful because of people's attention spans. And I'm like any person could just skip ahead a little bit if they wanted to, you know. But that album, I guess it still kind of took off, and I dig that. But I'm actually, as crazy as this sounds, I have toyed in my head with the idea of having a clean singer on it, like on a song, on a slam/death grind song. As crazy as that sounds, or maybe just like a interlude track that's like some soft piano melody, you know what I mean, with like, and kind of like a hymn, you know, and somebody singing on it. But I have honestly toyed with that idea, and I feel like I can incorporate it in a way where like fans of the genre aren't going to go like, "Oh, that's gay," you know. But like,
yeah, the second there's any melodic bit to it, it's like, ah.
yeah. Now, actually, I try to put like a little bit of melody. Like there's some tracks. I like having some tracks that are just an occasional track that is just straight up slam to the core, you know. But then I also love having like a little bit of melodic or a little bit of melody from time to time, but in a way, like a kind of like a dark melody, you know, like you'd hear in like maybe some old school death metal or something. But yeah, I get a little experimental without trying to stray out of the slam genre. I still want people to get that beefiness that they come for when they listen to a slam record.
It's like I call myself deathcore. I'm more of a gospelcore man. It's metal. I don't know if it is deathcore per se, but I'm definitely inspired by deathcore bands.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of covers, but when I do music practice to see how well I've improved or whatever, like I use The Last 10 Seconds of Life. Their Violent Sound album is amazing. I think I like it. I'm biased because I saw it in person. Anytime I see any music in person, I'm immediately biased towards liking it. Like The Devil Wears Prada will forever be my metalcore band because I've seen them in person. I also saw We Came as Romans, Silverstein, a bunch of other people in person. Really great. The Color Morale. But yeah, Last 10 Seconds of Life. That was a great concert because their opening band, it was their first show, and they were military veterans from Iraq. It's kind of messed up. And so they were just putting together this band. And they had a cowbell metronome. And when they were doing the recording, they accidentally recorded the routing for the metronome into the master. And they were using the master as a backing for their song. And they kept trying to like stop it and whatever, and that like burning up their set. And they just said, screw it. And the entire crowd was like, cowbell, just going with it. So
awesome.
That was a really great show. I was supposed to see, there was two other that Last 10 Seconds of Life wasn't even the headliner, but I got a phone call from a family member that was like, we just got a blizzard alert. So you need to get home before you can't get home. So I saw them, we grabbed the merch table and we left. But yeah, it's definitely something I just stopped caring about is people are always going to have something to say about something. Right. So like, it's whatever. I think what Seth said is if you're happy with it, it's good. I really like what he's helped me with the music. And then I was like, look, I'm sorry, man. I was trying to get this to you because you put pause on mastering some stuff. Just let me finish this up. He's like, yeah, no worries, brother. I want to make sure that you release the best music possible. And I think that's a really good sign of like where Seth is at. And he gave the song that's coming out on this Friday. Hopefully the YouTube is for sure. So hopefully the other stuff drops out on the same day. But he had me redo the intro and outro. And with what I was doing was kind of in my church, there was a famous pastor, or who we'd call an apostle, and he had a very unique way of talking, and I was mimicking the way that was for the intro and outro. And Seth's like, this is a little weird, man. Do it this way. So I went and did it, and I actually like it that way more. And that way it's not clicky. And then I have to remember, 22 seconds is how long people have listened to the first song that's had probably 300 lifetime streams on Spotify. So I need to do music a little bit differently. So that's what I'm kind of projecting it to be. And I'm following Hard Look, where he did the complete redo. I'm doing that style. I feel pretty inspired by Hard Look stuff. So I'm excited for 2024 to have, I want to get that EP out, because I have some really crazy songs that I want to do really bad. They're just really crazy. So I want to do that, and I can't do that until I finish this. So it'll be exciting. I am tired and worn out. I need to go take another nap before I go to work this afternoon. But this has been really fun, dude.
Yeah.
We're all over the place, so I think it'll be a really good conversation. If people made it this far, do you have any special messages for them?
Well, for one, go with Christ on everything. That's the most important one. Two, you want to check out my music, you can just look up Resurrected Divinity on Facebook. I have an Instagram that's Resurrected Divinity Official, or just Google Resurrected Divinity. But yeah, and I guess I'd like to also just shout out Broken Curfew Records, and shout out to Mangled Carpenter, Glay, Hard Look, a lot of really good bands. And
Brain Matter. Yeah, he posted
Brain
Matter too.
Pulpit Vomit. Yeah. So, yeah. And one more, actually. There's a little band. Let me make sure. I designed a logo for him recently called Lament with Piety, or Piety. I'm not, however. And they have, let me make sure I get it right. They have an Instagram page. Definitely worth watching out for if you like that, like slam or that more brutal style of deathcore. Man, if it would pop up for me. Here we go. Yeah, the Instagram page is just all lowercase Lament with Piety, no spaces. And they got like a little teaser video up of a song coming up, and it sounds pretty heavy. They're
some gore ship. I love it.
Yeah, they're influenced a lot by like some old really beefy old MySpace era deathcore, as well as slam. Their teaser actually sounded like a little bit more raw produced snippet of the I Declare Wars Amidst the Bloodshed album. So it's that style of really like borderline brutal death metal deathcore. They're gonna shout out to them, because I think they're gonna release something pretty heavy here sometime in 2024, and I'm looking forward to it. They're up and coming, but they're heavy. I can already tell.
I've been following their artwork, so I'm excited. There's going to be great things. I forgot to ask. How did you come up with Resurrected Divinity?
That was on a whim. Like, you mean like the name, or just
yeah?
Yeah, it was just like a on the whim idea. Like I said in the beginning, it was really nothing serious. I 100% admit, like, I was pretty lukewarm back when I started the project, and me and a buddy just thought it'd be silly if I started the most ridiculous style of goregrind tinted slam and made it Christian theme, like the kind of stuff where it literally sounds like they just wrote the lyrics after they recorded everything, you know? So that's how it started. And we just, I don't know, like it was a name that we just sort of spat out. But over time, it's like, you know, Resurrected Divinity, you know, that's like that's literally Christ. And, you know, and I've kind of dug it because there's quite a few other bands that like with 2-word band names and the second word's divinity that, like, you know, in the secular side of like brutal death metal and all that have been blown up. And so over time I kind of like made that comparison, and, you know, it's kind of, I had really in the beginning, it just was something that just got spat. I don't even remember if I came up with it. I think my friend Jacob came up with it. And I was just like, I like that. You know, it wasn't like something I had to sleep on. I just immediately was like, yeah, that works. But it's a name that I guess grew on me over time.
I got distracted. I realized I'm updating one of the lyrics. They posted Stephen the Lament with Piety posted a Stephen the Martyr, where he said, "Lord Jesus, receive my spirit." And I was like, that sounds brutal. So I'm actually adding it to the vocals that I'm tracking.
Yeah. They posted a couple more things since I last looked. I'll have to see what they posted here shortly. Yeah, I designed that logo for them. I've been, you know, trying, because you know how Christmas is. All the bills and everything hit you at once, and then you got to go buy gifts for the whole family, so you get broke.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been on the side doing some logo designs, band logos for cheap, like $25. There's a lot of times you can't get a death metal logo for less than 50. So I did one for them, and yeah. So, and in the process, I was talking to the guy, a really good dude, Anthony. There's another guy in it, and I think he's like remaining anonymous, but Anthony's doing the vocals, or at least the vocals. And, yeah, they're a band. Like I'm keeping an eye on them, because that little teaser that they dropped the other day, it's on their Instagram there. It's some heavy, like Waking the Cadaver, old I school. Declare War. Yeah. Old I Declare War type of stuff.
I saw a joke in the deathcore. It said, "Nothing stopping you from creating a new deathcore page and going back to old school deathcore."
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, man. This has been really great. I'll let you know how this episode goes. I have a lot of processing to do, put it out.
Oh, yeah.
I'll message you when it goes. We can find Resurrected Divinity, Spotify. You got a Bandcamp. You got some T-shirts, right?
Yeah, I have there's one design that's up on like the Broken Curfew Records Bandcamp. It's on the album stream for Lycanthropy too. But I got some other merch. Really, if you check my Instagram, I got a link tree link in my bio that'll take you to any of these places. But Anchor Merchandising, they have some of my shirts and whatnot up, and I've got a Teespring too, but I think it's slowly becoming more and more obsolete. So yeah, if you follow on Instagram, there's definitely, you can just look in my bio.
Yeah, you have that Satan is a Coward shirt.
Yeah,
that made me laugh so hard.
Yeah, that was actually I know we're trying to get off here, but just a quick story. That was actually, I'm sure a lot of people that have followed the metal music scene, that band Cradle of Filth, they had a shirt that went viral for years, because the back print in like kind of a similar format said big and bold, Jesus is a C word, like, you know, to some edgy shirt to piss people off, you know how some of these underground metal bands are. And so I had an idea about a month back. I'm like, or actually, I had it longer ago, but I designed a front design that has an image of like a crusader holding up the severed head of the Baphomet, and which is kind of ironic because some of the crusaders were apparently accused and executed for apparently worshiping the Baphomet. So, but I don't think it wasn't all of them, obviously, but yeah, that's the front design, and then the back print just says big and bold, "Satan is a coward," and it's just kind of like a mimic, or I'd say a mockery of that one Cradle of Filth shirt. And yeah, when I went shopping for presents at the mall, I wore that shirt, and I made it a point to walk through Spencer's with it on because they've got all that kind of edgy satanic imagery in there on shirt designs and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go through here, and it was
That's
funny.
dope. I need to pick up some. I followed you with my band on Instagram. I don't know why. I wish I could follow people with all my I have 3 Instagram accounts, so I wish I could follow so I'll be following somebody on one account and not following somebody on the other. But
I actually just got that notification, so I went ahead and followed you back.
yeah, but the type of shadow's following you. So the official,
Who what now?
my official band page was following you. That's where I would follow you from. It's so confusing. Okay. Like I'll be responding to people. I don't even know what friggin' social media. Am I on my band message? It gets confusing sometimes, but yeah, it's been real dope, dude. I'm excited. Go listen to his music if you like it. And if they get a hold of you, Instagram, let's go. It's been real, brother. As good. Stephen the Martyr says, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit.
Amen to that. And by the way, feel free to edit out any of my tangents that went nowhere if you feel necessary.
I'll be looking through
my train of thought derailments.
it'll take me a little bit, but yeah.
All right, that's been good, brother. It's good getting to know you, and
yeah, dude.
I'm looking forward to when this drops.
Yeah. Talk to you later, brother. Bye.
All right, you have a good one.